Hey Frontline fans, welcome back to Comic Frontline and fans. You're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do another episode of Pay It or Slay It. That's right, guys. This is the video review series where me, Mike Spider Slayer, takes a random of 10 comic books and talks about them. Now, you never know, if a comic could be really, really bad, in my opinion, I could slay that comic book. Or otherwise, I'm going to either drop it or pay for it. That's right, guys. So with that being said, welcome to the series, and let's get started with this newest episode. So there's a nice mixture of books this week, guys. We had a good mixture of independent comics, DC comics, and Marvel comics. Now, a lot of people have mixed feelings when it comes to Marvel these days, and a lot of people have positive thoughts of DC Rebirth, but I've been hearing more and more negative things about DC as of late too, as Rebirth has been wearing on. So where do my opinions stand? Well, let's see what the first book is. All right, here we go. So the first book I'm talking about is an independent comic book this week, and this one is Rick Remender's new series called 7 to Eternity. Now, a lot of the independent books I've been giving more of a try lately because Marvel just hasn't been hitting it out of the park for me. So I'm kind of trying a new indie book here and there. Plus, there's a couple of them that might be ending soon, and one of those series is Chew. So when it comes to 7 to Eternity, written by Rick Remender, and art is done by Jerome Opinion, this book is absolutely gorgeous. It opens up with nice sketch art. The world in the book absolutely looks gorgeous. The characters look gorgeous. There's different types of battling and fighting that's going on in this issue. Just really imaginative things that Rick Remender came up with this book. However, unfortunately, I found this world to be so expansive so soon that I couldn't really get what was going on into the comic book. And I felt like, oh man, if I could only find myself get attached to this world, I might like it that much better. Excuse me. However, it just felt like it was trying to move in too many directions too quickly. I would have loved to get a better introduction of the characters in the book. I would have loved to get a better introduction of really this whole entire world, because as you can see here on the page, it's very expansive and beautiful world, but I just couldn't get myself attached to it. And so in the end of the day, I got to sit here and and honestly tell you that I am not going to purchase this book going forward, just because it just felt too expansive for me. It just felt too big, and they tried to fit too much into the issue. So, in my opinion, guys, I'm not going to say any way, shape, or form close to slaying this book. Very talented writer and great artwork. So, if you find yourself that you can get into this, I say pay for it. But otherwise, for me, I'm not going to go forward with this book. So 7 to Eternity, yeah, just too much for me. I just couldn't quite get into it. All right, so next, let's talk about the next book, and we're going to go on to Trinity. This is a new #1 this week from the DC Rebirth line going on here, and a lot of people are probably really looking forward to this. This one is done by Francis Manapul, and excuse me, I can't clear my throat today. And the one thing I must say that in this book is that the artwork is absolutely outstanding. We get to see pictures of Wonder Woman in here, and we get to see the symbol in the background. You know, John with the with all these great art in the paneling. I mean, the paneling is just really revolutionary, and then that's what it is. They use that symbol, whether it's Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman. It's absolutely beautiful. I kind of like the light color tone towards the book, as it means that right now it seems to be this very light book. And in this issue, we wind up seeing Batman and Diana come to the farm and visiting the Kents or whatnot, and we wind up interacting with John. John doesn't really trust them, and he kind of zaps him with the heat vision at first, and really it was a matter of these guys getting all together to get on the same page with each other. And it kind of gives you an insight of what was going on and whatnot. And the interactions between characters are really good, especially with Lois and Diana. How Diana sits there and tells Lois, "Hey, I'm not going to hit on your man or anything like that." And it was really awesome. And it just gave you a little bit of a recap of what was going on with all the characters. And so we really don't get a huge setup until I guess the last page of the story. It gives you a cliffhanger of what's to come, because they all go in the barn, and you wind up seeing this other dimension of, I guess, which is Clark. And I guess when he was a little boy, I guess that's what it was, if I remember correctly. I read this like a week ago, so it's hard to remember. But I thought that the ending was really interesting, and it was like this other dimension thing. So great character interaction between the characters. Love seeing them meet up with the new Superman, since the other one has died. In the end, guys, I got to sit here and definitely, I would say, go out and pay for this book. This is a book that you must get. I think there's going to be some really good adventures going forward with this book. So definitely pay for that book. All right. Let's put that one away. And so the next book we're going to talk about this week, guys, is... what is it? Another Superman book. Just happened to fall in the DC line here. So Superman issue number 7. So there was a couple of DC books this week that I felt like we ended the story, and now the next story that we just read was a lot of filler, a lot of slow parts to get you kind of set up for the next story. However, Superman was just complete filler issue. Not that it was a bad issue. It was a nice issue that had to deal with Superman, and it had to do with Lois, and it had to do with John. And it was basically Superman taking his day off. You see him get to do all these battles, everything that he was going on, and his family misses him. And so what happens is Clark sits there and promises to take a day off to go to the local town fair. And they're like, "Oh, you promise not to be Superman today?" And he's like, "I promise. We're going to spend the night together as a family." So John's all happy. And I like the artwork in here. It's cute. It's a little cartoony. It reminds me of a little bit of an anime-ish type of feel. And you get to see the family go out into town. He interacts with his little girlfriend, John does, and I think that's cute. Kind of reminds you of maybe Clark and Lana of the early days, of the teen days. You know, she gives a nice little cute wink. I like the artwork. I think it's so innocent. And then you get to see, little mischief happen with these guys that are trying to, rob the fair and whatnot. And you get to see, Clark do his little investigating, and he tries all he can not to interfere, but in the end of the day, he winds up, interfering. But he quickly joins the family and goes for a nice little roller coaster ride. And at the end of the book, and it was pretty cool to see these facial expressions when they were going up on the roller coaster, and then it's like up and away, and it was cool. It was a fun book. There's nothing here that sits there and says, "Oh my God, I gotta buy Superman issue number 7. It's really in between story arcs. It's just a nice story that has to do with the family, and I think it's something that if you like Superman, you like Clark, and you like John, I definitely say go out and pay for it, guys. This is a good series overall. This takes place basically of the Superman book that happened before Rebirth happened, and I forgot what it was called. Was it Lois and Clark? I think that's what it was called. So, all right. So, what's the next book we're going to talk about today? So, next book is, it's a heavy one. It feels like a new book. Yes, yeah. Revolution issue number 1. That's right, guys. This was a great book. If you want to see an in-depth review, I did do an in-depth review of Revolution issue number 1. And what IDW is doing is it's taking all these properties and they're mushing them up together to make this one universe. And I think that's a great idea, because for years and years we've always seen these properties and they've always been individualized, and you write their own separate adventures. But why not mix them together? I think that's a lot of fun. And in this issue, you wind up getting to see that. You get to see different characters in here, like the Action Man. You wind up seeing G.I. Joe and Transformers, which are the heavy players in here. And then you wind up getting to see Rom. You don't get to see Mask, which I heard is going to be in this series as well at the, in this issue, but you saw it in the Prelude issue. And I thought this was a really cool book. I thought the artwork was absolutely gorgeous in here. The colors really stood out. That made the book pop. And it was about this crystal that everyone's going after, and it's called Ore 13, and it's highly unstable. But the Joes have this vendetta against the Cybertronians, whether it's Decepticons or Autobots, it really doesn't matter. And Scarlet feels that it's their fault, it's the Cybertronians' fault, that they're causing these explosions all over the Earth or Greece or wherever it's at. And so what happens is they go out and they go after the Autobots. And right away you get to see this battle commence. And it's really action heavy. And it was really cool to see the Autobots here, where they try to protect the human life. They don't want to hurt them. And it's so funny to see the G.I. Joe sitting there shooting at them, and they're shooting and shooting and shooting, and Autobots are like, pew, pew, pew. They're trying to like deflect the bullets, and it's like, pew, 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 pew. And they're like, oh yeah. Well, they're just like pesky flies, you know? And so what happens is Soundwave is a Autobot ally right now, and he plants a virus in all their vehicles so they can't shoot at him anymore. And I thought that was awesome. So just as they're trying to get through to the GOs and trying to talk with them, the next thing you wind up seeing is Rom Space Knight flies by, right? And you're like, oh, cool, it's Rom Space Knight. I think everything's going to be great. No, that's not the case. He winds up frying the original G.I. Joe, which is Joe Colton or whatever his name is. Joe Colton. Trying to remember. I think that's what it is. Yeah, Joe Colton. And he burns the flesh off his bones. And it's just like, holy crap. And so they think he's a Cybertronian type of character. And you're like, oh, shit. And so the next thing you wind up seeing is that the Autobots wind up escaping. They're going to go on to this new mission to try to find Rom. And then basically Scarlet at the end of it sits there and says, yeah, we're going to go after those guys. You know, they killed our people and blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was really awesome. So if you didn't read the Prelude book, this was a little bit of a Prelude book to give you a heads up of what happened with the Joes, what happened with Optimus Prime, and then we wind up finding out that the Mask leader is behind everything as well to go after the Autobots. This is a great book. Really awesome, and I can't wait to see what happens in issue number 2. I thought it was so action-packed, but it had a decent story in there. And if you love these properties, you're going to really love this book, because I'm an 80s kid and I grew up to all this stuff. I grew up to Transformers. I grew up to G.I. Joe. I grew up to Mask. And it's just cool to see everything interact with each other and how they're going to get along. It will be very intriguing. So I definitely say go out and pay for this book. This is one that you guys should purchase, especially if you like these properties. Alright, so let's see. What's the next book we're going to talk about today? And that is, what is it, guys? Cyborg, issue number 1. Now, I didn't like the last volume of Cyborg. I thought it just got very generic very quickly. And when it came to this Rebirth issue, I was very hesitant. I actually made fun of that Rebirth book, looking at, the way Victor's hands were, how they looked like a dildo or a penis or something like that, because it had this one thing, and it was shaped like a dildo, and it just like bothered me, and I had to say something about it. But in this issue, they changed the cover this time around, and they put Cyborg in the front and center, and they showed him showing his weapon. That's the way maybe you should do it. I don't know. Maybe it's just a perverted mind that I was thinking of. But anyway, the Rebirth issue was really good. And if you're a new reader to the character, I thought that's what made it so good. Now, if you know Cyborg, then maybe it was very boring to you, and you know that, oh yeah, I'm Victor Stone, and I'm Cyborg, and this happened to me, and my dad, and my mom died. But for me, I really enjoyed that. It's revisiting the character, revisiting his origin, and it's fine. And in this issue, it winds up going into the story, and you wind up finding out that there's this mysterious enemy, and you're not sure if it's a reject version of Victor Stone where they used his DNA to recreate a generic guy or a reject guy, and his dad stored him away, or if it's actually his dad using the technology himself and created a clone of himself, and now it's got this intelligence that's, you know, making all these cyborgs to take over the world, because he winds up creating this crazy creature by the name of, and I think it gives it to you at the end of the issue, Kilgore, I think it was. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Kilgore. So this creature's name is Kilgore, and so you wind up seeing Cyborg go out. He does his duties, and what this issue does really well is it taps into the soul of Cyborg, not his robotic form, and it's something that you don't get to see that often. And he feels very depressed. He feels alone. He feels that he's losing the human side of himself. He's constantly being tested by his dad. He's constantly saving the world against bad guys. He's used for his strength, but he's not used, you know, for his soul, for his human self. So you see him go out on the town, and you know, and you wind up seeing him that he finds what is you know, good for the heart, you know, music. And so he finds himself again. And just as he does that in this issue, he feels that he is human and that he's all not machine, and the machine part is not taking over. We wind up seeing that crazy creature wind up coming back and rips off his clothes and you know, thrusts him right back into the robot side of himself, and that's basically how the issue ends. But it's this rebirth issue, and this is really exploring the human side of Victor, and that's what I really enjoyed about this. It's not all about him doing battle against cyborgs and robots and him just being this machine. It's the human side, and I can appreciate that. And as long as the book is written to explore his human side, I feel that this is going to be a really good series. So definitely, guys, go out and pick that book up, everybody. I think this one is a good one, and it's a keeper. All right. So the next book we're going to talk about is, what is it? Oh, yeah, Venom Space Knight, issue number 12. Now, I was really excited about this book. I love the direction that Venom was going, because it was him losing himself. He doesn't need a host to actually be Venom anymore. He has a part of him that's missing, and they can't make him whole again until he finds that piece. So they had to go to Earth to find, I think Mania is her name. And at the end of the issue, you saw Venom and Spider-Man doing this battle. And the next thing you wind up seeing is that the Venom symbiote winds up taking possession of Peter Parker. And you're like, oh, shit, he's going to become Spidey Venom again. You know, at least maybe for one issue. And it opens up really good. And I love this blackness, this hole that Peter Parker is in, and you see the costume, it's all torn up, and I love the artwork in this book. It's very, like, exaggerative, and I love the detail into it and the darkness that goes into it. And I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. So Venom is taking him into his memories. And then right when you start reading the book, you wind up finding out that Venom doesn't remember who Peter Parker is, because it was cleansed back on that planet. And you're kind of like, what? Really? He doesn't remember Peter Parker? So basically, everything is retcon that you know from the black symbiote suit. It doesn't remember him. So he's sitting there and, you know, explaining to him. He's like, you don't remember me? He's like, yeah, no. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to release you. And he's like, ah, yeah. He's like, yeah, just go with your Flash friend. And he's like, yeah, we're gonna, you know, find this girl Mania, and we're gonna get myself together, and we're gonna, you know, solve the problem. And I was like, no shit. I'm like, they just erased everything that you know about Venom. So they wind up teaming up. They wind up doing battle. Again, the artwork looks gorgeous. The action is awesome. Look at the webbing in here. I think that was really nice. And so you wind up seeing them working together. He's got his containment unit. They're searching for her. You know, we haven't seen this girl since the Venom series, when I think, was it Cullen Bunn that did it? And they wind up finding her, and it's like one punch and she's knocked out, basically. They, you know, because he winds up using this electrosonic device, and she winds up getting knocked out, and they contain her. And so you're like, okay, well, they contain her. And you're like, that's cool. So now both symbiotes are together. They're going to try to find this, I guess, elixir or whatnot to cure them. And the next thing you wind up finding out that, well, what's her face, Andy, is not just part of the symbiote, but now she's like freaking a hell child too. She's like got all these powers, like satanic powers. And I was like, really? And I was this close to sitting here, guys, and just, but at most, this book is right, it's a car wreck, okay? Because when you sit there and you look at it and say, as much as they retcon everything, they got rid of what Spider-Man knows or Venom knows, I find myself intrigued because I want to find out what is going to happen with Venom going forward. Because in the new series, in the Marvel Now, it promises that Venom is going to be the way we know him. So I can't sit here and drop this series and say, I'm going to slay it and never read it again. Even though I just had something I didn't agree with, it's just I still have to find out what happens here. But very disappointed. And this is the definition of Marvel right now. They're changing everything. Every single thing that you've known, they have changed it. And it's even hit Venom. So I thought they had already done it. Well, it's not truly done until you sit there and say, oh, hey, I'm the Venom symbiote. I don't remember taking over you. I'm like, come on, man. Gee whiz. So if you're pissed off at Spider-Man or Venom right now, maybe not read this. But if you find yourself wanting to find out what happens to Venom going forward into Marvel Now, then I say read it. All right. Had to contain myself there. All right. Next book we're going to talk about is another Spider book. It's funny how they're back to back. Amazing Spider-Man issue number 18. Now, I am looking on both sides of the audience when it comes to the Amazing Spider-Man this time around. If you read Superior Spider-Man, you're going to know everything that happened when it came to Doc Ock. Because this is basically a setup of what's happening or about to happen with Dr. Octopus. It basically revisits his time as he was Superior Spider-Man. It revisits how he has the artificial intelligence, on how he became the brain, the brain where his intelligence went. And we wind up finding out that Doc Ock is no longer content in that body. He wants to truly get out. He tries in this issue. He kind of fails, and he winds up escaping. But he winds up learning that there's this new technology that can create these bodies, and maybe he can get his own body back again. So when it comes to this book, I felt that I was looking at both people, both audiences here. The audiences that didn't care for Superior Spider-Man and know all about his story or read it already and just kind of find out and saying, hey, this is pretty much like a filler book, you know, and doesn't really progress the story all that much. But then I look on the other side of the audience and I sit here and go, if you're a Doc Ock fan, you might really like this book because you want to revisit the story about how, you know, he's been living in this robot and how he, you know, and remember how his deal was in Spider-Verse and Superior Spider-Man and how he escaped and how he's no longer in this robot body. So I got to look at it for both sides of the story here. For me, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't in love with it. I thought that the last story was much better where it had to do with Electro. But again, it's all set up going to this whole Dead No More and clone conspiracy theory and all this other stuff that's happening in the series. So, as a Spider-Man fan, guys, I got to sit there and say, pay for this book. I have read every single Spider-Man book since I was like, I don't know, since issue 300 and something. I can never drop Spider-Man as bad as it is, but I'll leave this one up to you guys. It's not a must to read to understand what's going on in Spider-Man right now. All right, next book we're going to talk about is Civil War 2, All New Wolverine, issue number 12. It's a tie-in. I've been a fan of Tom Taylor's writing for a very long time, ever since he did Earth 2 with DC. He's done, I think, Injustice, He did Superior Iron Man. Now he's writing all new Wolverine. And being that it's tied to Civil War, he can only do so much because he's got to, I guess, obviously talk about Civil War too. And so, but when it comes to him writing Laura, I think he hits the nail on her head. I think he's a great writer, and I think he creates a lot of emotion. I think he understands how to write women, and I think it's nice. But in the last issue, what I had a problem with is we had an annual come out, and you see Laura interacting with Gabby, and at the end of the last issue, with issue 11, we saw Gabby, who is the young girl clone of Laura and Wolverine, and she winds up getting stabbed by Old Man Logan. And you're sitting there going, okay, y'all know she's going to live. She's got these regeneration powers and whatnot. And it was no real cliffhanger. It was kind of really predictable. And in this issue, you kind of see this little bit of a flashback what happens with Logan, how he kills Gabby because she's the future and he's in his future, and he obviously doesn't care for her. So being that Old Man Logan was all drugged up with tranquilizers and everything else, he winds up stabbing her, and you think that she's dead. And the whole issue, I was sitting there going, she's not dead. She's not dead. Tom Taylor does a pretty good job at drawing this out, thinking, hey, maybe she is dead because she didn't come back right away. It took her some time. But we all know with the Wolverines, it's regeneration process. It takes some time for these characters to come back. And so what happens is you wind up seeing Laura. She winds up running away from Captain America because not only does she blame Logan for the death, but she blames Captain America for the situation that happened. And Laura fights Logan in this issue. You get to see this kind of this drawn-out battle. And we wind up seeing that she threatens Logan and saying, we understand what happens in your world, but you're not part of this world. I don't want to see you ever again. And the next thing we wind up seeing is you do wind up seeing Gabby come back to life when you think that she's actually dead. And we wind up seeing Laura talk with Cap, Hail Hydra Cap, of course. And she sits there and says, you know what? None of this shit would have happened if it wasn't for you. You're the one that sat there and said that Ulysses had this vision of Logan killing this person and that and going all crazy. But if it wasn't for your ass pursuing the situation, this would have never happened. So she sits there and she's all pissed off, and she sits there and she takes Gabby out of the way. And you gotta love Gabby in this book. She's just such a wise ass. She just sits there and she goes, you bring a single ounce of pain into that perfect woman's life, and I'll put you down like a rabid dog. She's like, bye-bye, see you later. She's such a cutesy little character, but she's a little badass. So, it's a good book. I love it. Is it the strongest issue that I've ever read when it comes to All New Wolverine? No. But that's not really Tom Taylor's fault. Again, he's given the assignment of sitting there going, hey, Tom, it's Civil War. What are you going to do with it? So, it's got tie on to Civil War. A lot of characters are stalled right now until Civil War is over. We don't really see much progression. So hopefully once Civil War happens, or once it's done and we get to this Marvel Now nonsense, we're going to see some progression with characters, because I feel that's where Marvel stands right now. It needs progression. It needs universe building, and take time away from the events so we get to know these characters again. We ran into Secret Wars right away, and right away it was announced that Civil War II was going to happen. We saw the whole Captain America thing happen, so they had that event, and none of these characters had time to build in All New, All Different Marvel. And I found that that's its problem. If we took a couple years away from the events and we had a universe building situation and character building situation, people would attract to these characters more. But we just keep changing and changing and changing and going towards what the movies, surrounding ourselves with the movies. Let the moviegoers be the moviegoers. Let the comic readers be the comic readers. If you want to throw elements into the comics from the movies, you can, but don't base your comics around the movies. And I feel like that's kind of what we've been doing, as of late. So, that's my little soapbox there. All right, let's talk about the next comic book. Next comic book goes to Black Hammer. That's right, guys. Black Hammer, obviously, one of my new favorite books. It's a really great series. And basically what this series is written by Jeff Lemire, and this is about a bunch of heroes that saved the city back in the Golden Age, and there was a leader that sacrificed themselves so the rest of the team could live in this farm, in this area, this land, and it's called Black Hammer. And in each issue, we've been diving into the different types of characters, so you, as the reader, can get attached to these characters. And that's what I love so much about this book. I love the world, and I love world building, but what I like more is the character development. So right away you get attached to the characters, and you can find your favorite character and go for them, vote for them, cheer for them, all that stuff. And in this issue, it focused on the warlord of Mars. His name is Barb Alien. I think that's what it is. And for me, he's like this ripoff off of a Martian Manhunter. He lives in Mars. We wind up seeing this person that this NASA person that winds up crashing into Mars. They make a trip to Mars. The trip was a failure. The leader winds up sitting there saying, if you believe in peace, you believe that if these people come in peace, that we're going to throw you out there, and you'll be the liaison for our people and find out more about these Earth people. So he winds up getting thrusted into Earth, which I thought was really cool. And we wind up seeing him take shape back in the day when he first came to Earth. He wound up coming across a detective or a police officer. He took his form, so what he does is he shape-shifts, just like Martian Manhunter, and he winds up throwing the body into the ocean, and he winds up being this cop's partner for a while, and for about 6 years, and he has emotional attachment for him, but it's the wrong emotional attachment. Thinking that that man versus man touching man, it was okay, and the guy wasn't into all that. He wasn't into being gay, so the guy was kind of just throws him out. And ever since then, it's all about this barbarian creature just being an outcast, not being part of anything. And you get to feel his pain throughout the issue. And I thought this was a really well done book. And this is what this book has done so good. Jeff Lemire has really shown that, in the short time, the development of these characters and their personalities and their struggles and everything that they're going through. And this is a great series. If you guys have not checked this out yet, please check it out. A really, really good book. It's one of my favorite books right now, and it's only issue number 3. And going into issue number 4, just now is it tapping into the story of what's to come. But in the meantime, we're still developing the characters, as we're going to talk about, I think, Abraham Slam, which is the next character. So great book here, guys. Definitely go out there and I would say pick this one up. Pay for it. Absolutely. All right. Next book we're going to talk about this week, guys, is Savage Dragon, issue 216. This is a favorite book of mine. Probably no one else in the world really reads Savage Dragon besides me. And I know one YouTuber, Peter Barker, again, a good friend of mine that comments on a lot of the videos. He's reading Savage Dragon, and I don't know anybody else does. So if anybody else reads Savage Dragon that is watching this video, please let me know, because it's such an awesome book, especially since like issue 203, as we get to see Malcolm Dragon take over the legacy of his father. And so in this issue, it was really good because it has to deal with Malcolm handling his new children by the name of Jack, Tyrone, and Amy. And it was really awesome to see, Malcolm go out in the town. He's doing his job. He's fighting crime. And then in the meantime, we wind up seeing the kids, they're causing havoc. They have superpowers. They're like maybe one years old, not even, maybe a few months old. They're just learning how to crawl. And they're like destroying the Christmas tree. They're like destroying the house. It's just so funny to see that. They're falling through ceilings. They're causing all these problems. And Malcolm can't be there because he's trying to save the day, which I thought was so funny. We get to see Angel be involved in the whole situation. And what this book is so great at is it reminds me of traditional comics. It's drawn like a traditional comic. It's got the words, the sound effects like traditional comics, but yet it tells a great story, and it takes place in real time. Savage Dragon has always done that. It's taken place, it started since when Image Comics first started, and it's aged with time. So if Savage Dragon is 50 years old, because the company's been around for 30 years or whatever it is, and that's how old Savage Dragon is. It's just a great book. It really is. And we wound up seeing Malcolm meet up with the Ant, who's making I guess Eric Larson is revitalizing this character, and the book kind of crosses over to Spawn. So I thought this was a really great book, again, for the family aspect of it, not necessarily because of the crossover, but again, because of the family aspect. If you guys are into Savage Dragon, I definitely say go out there, guys, and pick it up, dude. Pay for it. This is a great book. All right, so let's see what we're going to talk about next. I think it might be one last book. That's right, yes, it's one last book, and that one goes to Civil War II. Issue number 5. Now, when it comes to Civil War, I've been enjoying this event. What made this event is the emotion of the event. With Carol and with Tony Stark and the build-up up until this war that's about to break up. We've gotten to see the death of the Hulk. We've gotten to see all kinds of stuff happen. And finally, at the end of this issue, Carol has had enough because Tony interfered with her, interrogation with this person. And the next thing you wind up seeing is this all-out war that starts to break loose. You wind up getting to see this tour that happens, this like helicopter tour, and you wind up seeing Drax going flying across. And the next thing you see is you get to see all the heroes are starting to do battle against each other. Now, this is what we've been waiting for, right? We've been waiting for the war. But for some reason, when I read this book, I was taken down by it. I was like, man, we got all this suspension for all this battle, for this battle to happen, and I was kind of bored by the battle. The thing was, it was cool to see the superheroes do battle with other superheroes, but at the same time, I almost found myself trying to pick apart, was it accurate on which side the teams were on? I don't know, were they? So, as the issue went along, we get to see all those battles that happened. But even though it was cool to see that, I just felt like it was almost too much. I was just like, okay, yeah, we got Miles meeting with Venom for the first time. We get to see Magic do battle against what was it? Who'd she do battle against? Captain America, Sam Wilson. That was kind of cool. And then, after all this happened, I was kind of just like, all right, well, even though the battle happened, there still didn't seem like there was a lot of emotion and drive into it. It was, what made this event, again, was all that, suspense and build-up and the emotion leading up to it. But the fight had no emotion. They were just letting loose. So if you want all that action, yeah, go for it. But at the end of this issue, you wind up seeing this. So as a reader, you're supposed to be like, oh, wow, Miles Morales killing Captain America? How can that be? Is it supposed to have that same effect as the whole situation happened with the Hulk? No, absolutely it's not. This is no way in shape or form Miles' character. You would never see that. And the thing is what happens if Miles sits there and finds the body like this and someone else killed him? Or if Miles somehow found out that, hey, Cap is Hail Hydra and he did kill him. So they're seeing this vision of it, Or it's just a shapeshifter. It could be anything. It's not Miles Morales. I would never believe it in a million years. And it just didn't really do anything for me. The Hulk is more believable because he is a monster. He loses control. You can see that actually happen. This is not going to happen, or it's something else. It didn't really sit there and go like, oh wow, I have to do this. And then right away, bitch Captain Marvel sits there and goes, you're under arrest. Come on, man. Miles Morales. Come on, just like give him the benefit of the doubt. She's been such a bitch. She's been morally wrong the entire time, and she just doesn't want to admit it. You can clearly see she's the wrong side of everything, and for her and for anybody else to team up with her are stupid. That's just my opinion. Do I slay this book? Absolutely not. I've been enjoying this series for the most part. This was just that issue where you get the big battle. Every issue or every event has that happen. So hopefully issue 6 and 7 or 8, wherever they end this at, will be much better. And there you have it, guys. So I say if you're into Civil War 2, I say definitely go out and still pay for the book. It's just a bump in the road. So there you have it, guys. So mostly, even though there was some, you know, uneasy instances when it's come to pay it or slay it this week, there wasn't a book worth slaying this week. I thought all the books were pretty good and worth reading, and definitely if you don't want to read it anymore, just go ahead and drop it. But I'm going to continue to read every single one of these books. So guys, now it's your turn in the comments below to sit there and tell me what books you were most excited to read, which books you think you might slay, and any of the other discussions that I talked about. Please, again, put that in the comments below. So again, guys, thank you for watching Comic Frontline. If you guys want to see my top 5 comics of the week, please watch tonight, Tuesday night, 9:30, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about all this week's comic book news and our top 5 comic books of the week. And that is on Frontline Live. So again, guys, thank you for watching. And this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off. Take care. Bye.